What's going on, everybody? This is Travis Witherspoon from Carter Cow Capital. This is another episode of Trade with Travis. Morning session. This is the official first time that we're going to end up going at 9, and then after that, probably might end up doing something at the midday. I'm thinking maybe 12 or 1 to be able to talk about what has happened when it came down to trading. But a lot has happened in literally the last 5 minutes and what's been happening over the course of the last I want to say over the course of the last 3 to 4 days, plus the last 3 months, the market has been crazy. And if you look at the title, it ends up saying, "Hey, we end up going 20K over 3 months." We just did that. On Nas 100 for us being able to go from there. For sure, what's going on? Hope everything's going well with you. Thanks for being able to pop in. Thanks for dropping in. What we end up doing here, just like each and every time that we end up going through a Trade with Travis session, is that we're going to end up going about 30 minutes, taking a look at the chart, seeing if there's any trading opportunities, because it is the morning time. Instead of looking at game plans, we're actually looking at trading opportunities. Most of my trades have actually already completed their D extensions or completed their take profit levels. I am going to talk about all of those, and then after that, we will do an education quick lesson. This one will end up being on bond profile today, and I'm going to explain why it's going to be on bond profile because it's going to make a hell of a lot of sense based off of the last few trades that we end up taking. So let's go ahead and get started. Not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from the education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. Now, understand that forex trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money. Also involves risk of being able to lose money. So please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you can end up making money today. So with that being said, I want to say 2 things before we end up hopping onto the chart. So one, thank everyone for being able to pop in. It truly means a lot that you end up popping in and actually being able to start and build a community on TradingView. We're actually so very close to 500 followers. I'm super excited about it. We're moving along steady. I'm actually going to end up posting out more content, and obviously the little lessons that we end up going through, I'm going to end up posting those as well. So hopefully we can build everybody's accounts just like what we've been doing for that. Also, understand that I do this as a business. This is something that I end up teaching. I end up teaching forex trading, stock trading, automation systems, and everything else. Also end up having boot camps. So if you're interested in a little bit of that information, you can go to cartercowcapital.com/start here. And like always, my favorite broker is Osprey FX. If you're interested, you can look inside of the live chat, be able to click on the Osprey FX. They allow you to be able to have a leverage of over 500 for very low spreads, and you can be able to get your money back within 3 hours because of the way that they end up going through their transactions. So super excited about that. Let's go ahead and get started now. All right, so we're going to take a look at markets that are trending, have time frame alignment, and then after that, you know the vibes. We just make sure that we end up staying within those overall trade parameters to be able to take a look at the trade. So economic news just came out today. We just had consumer price index actually end up being pretty good. We end up having net change of employment that actually end up being pretty good as well. And then after that, unemployment rate actually end up being very good for the Canadian dollar, which is actually going to, I think, add up to why I think oil is probably going to end up pushing up a little bit more. But I'm going to take a look at that chart because that's the only thing that I did not trade today or have not been trading for a while. Just like what I just said, we just have oil up there. Let me take a look at the United States dollar index first. If there's any pairs that anyone has that they want me to take a look at while we go through all of this, please make sure that you drop it inside of the comments now. And I make sure that I go through and take a look at those. So make sure we end up doing that. Also, it probably might be better if I do this. Let's see. Sorry, just give me one. Well, never mind. I'll do that later. All right, cool. So, taking a look at the weekly. We ended up talking about this earlier. We said that the market ended up basically hitting the D extension, broke the inner trend line. Once it gravitates from an inner trend line, it'll move up to the outer trend line. Then from there, we're looking at being able to see how this market is going to test. Remember, this red area was the area where I ended up saying that I felt like the market was going to end up was probably going to end up retesting, but that'll be a strong area where you'll start seeing a little bit of return. What's going on? What's going on, Bill? Hope everything's going well with you. And from what I'm looking at right now, we can clearly see that the market is starting to break towards that area. There's a full counter trend line break. If it remains to be this way for the end of the week, and then you possibly may see the market continuing to be able to move with a very low fractal. So the thing is, I'm just trying to see how well we're going to end up working off of that. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I try to keep the fractals on because it makes it a little bit easier. So when I end up placing in my smart fields, I can be able to know what's actually happening. But if we take a look at this from a daily position, a couple things that end up happening. Obviously, the market was in the buy zone the last time we ended up taking a look at it. I said that personally, I wanted to look at being able to sell. So I was looking at high prices to be able to get in. So I did not get in on the United States dollar index as a whole. What's going on, Mike? Hope everything's going well with you. Oh, from Durban, South Africa. Nice. Um, so have a little up push. We know that the market, if it keeps on remaining to do this, because it only fell down to the 23.6 and not the 38.2, we'll probably end up seeing an 80-20 rule. Remember, I said that if it does break up, we got to keep in mind that it could go up to 12,945 for the overall move toward the upside. So with that being said, the weekly now is pointing up because we had that counter trend line break. The daily is pointing up. You end up making a move off of this one, then that was great. If not, if this market remains, if this market is going to remain to be bullish, then what I would look to be able to see is seeing if this area or that red line that I end up having, which was basically the midpoint of this, is actually going to end up being a new support before it actually starts pushing up. So United States dollar index, U.S. pairs are basically bullish. Obviously, we can see that overall. Take a look at oil real quick. We talked about how the Canadian dollar actually ended up going up in value when it came down to, or ended up doing very well for its unemployment rate. Typically, when you look at oil, it has a strong correlation on what's happening with the Canadian dollar. So if oil is moving to the upside, then more than likely the Canadian dollar is moving to the upside. So got a full counter trend line break to the upside. Obviously, the weekly is bullish. We're kind of in the middle range of the stochastic. There's a D extension that's expected to be at 171.23. So please expect that you're probably going to end up seeing higher gas prices and everything else. We take a look at it from a daily perspective. Hey, well, let me ask y'all the question for the people that are watching. What is gas for y'all right now? I know for me in the States where I'm at, I'm paying $4.50. What is it for y'all? I'm kind of interested in being able to know. Um, we take a look at the daily. We can see that obviously this market has not had that little bit of a retracement that we was looking for to be able to push up to the upside. I expected that it was going to end up happening and trying to get that off of a 2 hour. Actually, the market ended up breaking up and pushing more to the upside. I know that the market is bullish. I am trying to get a low value price to be able to get in. If we can't get that, then we'll see how it's going to end up going. 150 per liter, 155 per liter. Okay, so what would that equate to when it comes down to United States dollars? Huh. All right. I'm curious on how much would, if I was actually in your area, how much would that equate to? I'll take a look at that a little bit later on. But so we had a breakout on the 2 hour. We finally have a retest right here. Obviously, we know the oil is going up in value. Yeah, I'm bullish on oil, so a higher prices, man. I wanted to be. I've been buying on oil since it was at $67. So I totally agree with you. The question is it going to end up making it up to 171? But currently, right now, as a scalping thought process, about 590. Okay, that's okay. So when I was in California, that's pretty much the same price. Where I'm at is actually a little bit lower, or it remains to be lower. So we do have a counter trend line break. We do have a retest. I will look for a little bit of a confirmation for this market to be able to push a little bit more to the upside first before thinking about being able to get in, because it is Friday. Fridays to me means either you're scalping and you're just trying to get out as quick as possible, or you understand that you're going to end up doing it for the long term. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in the long term on the oil, at least not right now for this one. I want to see how this market kind of reacts going into when the market opens up on Sunday and Monday before actually making a move. So let's just say if we're going to end up scalping this, just as an idea, the A was broken. Okay, well, never mind. I'm not going to end up scalping it yet off of that one. So I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait to see how this kind of reacts before being able to make a thought process on being able to get in. Um, Take a look at gold. Gold has a strong correlation with the Japanese yen. We've got this on a weekly perspective. I was talking about I wanted to look at being able to buy because it's weekly, because the market was in the buy zone and we ended up having a strong counter trend line break. We will try to buy it all the way up to the inner trend line. Obviously, if you looked at me and looked at some of the things that we've done over the course of the last few weeks, we've gotten into a couple trades on gold, but obviously I'm out now because of the way that this market has been rolling. Um, this market was in consolidation. As soon as it ended up getting into consolidation, I ended up getting out. Um, it fell down to support. Obviously, support is holding up right now. We'll see if that's going to end up remaining to be the same. But currently, right now, because it is in consolidation, I wouldn't recommend anybody being able to take a look at it. So that's an easy one. Let's just go ahead and get off of that one and be able to move on to the other charts. I want to talk about US 30. I want to talk about Nas 100. I want to talk about Bitcoin. Call it 172 for over the coming weeks. Uh, Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I end up doing it. The only thing is, and I'm gonna kind of obviously I love Trading View, but I use Smart Trader as well. If you get a free account on Smart Trader, what they have is this thing called Smart Fibs. I'll give you a perfect example real quick because obviously Trading View has it, but it doesn't necessarily work as well. You have to find somebody that has has like some type of private script. So I'm going to clear this screen. And you go, once again, this is Smart Trader. But if you end up clicking on Smart Tools right on the bottom of this and you go to one of those fractals, let's go to this fractal right here. And you click on the bottom of it because we see that the trend is going to the upside. And you click on that, then it will automatically make the fibs for you, which will allow you to be able to, one, not have to go through the hassle of being able to create them, but obviously know where your take profit levels are going to end up being based off of Fibonacci's. For me, this is the way that I ended up learning when I first got started. And quite frankly, it's the only way that I end up doing for is manual trading. So that may end up being something that you may be interested in being able to use, especially if you use Fibonacci's the way that I do. So there you go for people that may be interested in that. Let's see. I want to take a look at. So I want to talk about Nas 100, and that's going to lead me to the lesson that we're going to end up talking about today, which is Ron Profile. But essentially, what ended up happening was this: I ended up taking two sales. I ended up taking two sales on this market move based off of the 618, and I'm going to explain why in a brief second. Let me make sure these charts are the same. So we take a look at what's happening with Nas 100. Remember, I end up saying that. Obviously, you look at what's happening with US 30. You look at what's happening with Nas 100. US 30 has been the leader, but Nas 100 has been the most consistent one. And that's the reason why we actually end up bringing in over 20K over the course of the last 3 months was because of how clean this chart has actually been. So I know I got a lot of stuff going. Um, but this hit me out on this one. So the weekly perspective of where I think this market is going to end up going ultimately um, is going to end up being at 10,760. And essentially what I'm looking at is this. We have this, we've seen that the market end up having a strong engulfing candlestick that ended up happening a few weeks ago. And since then, last week, we end up having an indecision candlestick. And typically, once you end up getting an indecision candlestick like that, you're going to end up getting a decision candlestick, typically the opposite way. This is creating a evening star. And because it's creating an evening star, if it remains to be this way by the end of today, then that means that more than likely what will end up happening over the course of the next two candlesticks, over the course of the next 2 weeks, is that next week, the market will probably try to retest the overall candlestick formation. And then after that, the week after that, you'll probably end up seeing a strong move and hopefully a completion of this movement. Now, why is that important? Because if you look at it, the market's at 12,000, but the take profit is going to end up being at 10,000. So it's screaming out that there's going to end up being a strong, decisive move to the downside that may end up happening that could complete this overall move. And that will be the area where people will look at actually being able to buy it back up. Yeah, I'm seeing it everywhere. There's a lot of signs showing that it will be that way. We take a look at the daily. The daily was in the buy zone, but we have a clear counter trend line break. I called that out called that out on Sundays. On Sunday, when we ended up taking a look at it, we said that hey, if that's going to remain to be that case, then you would want to be able to look at being able to sell at least short term. Now, point of control at this particular point is at 11,906. Make sure. Nope, said that wrong. Um, I'm sorry. There we go. We can move this out of the way. Let's go. I'm going to keep on saying that this is going to the downside. So we have a counter trend line break that's already going to happen. That happened at the 618. That means the extension will be at 10,544. If you look at that, that matches up and has a strong confluence of what's happening with the weekly. So this is the take profit position where I think it's going to end up going. I've already been in this market. I actually ended up getting, actually literally on this first movement that ended up happening earlier today. It ended up closing out on a few of my trades on my automation system. I still got one more trade that's left when it comes down to that. But I think that that's probably going to end up hitting and basically completing um, overall. So let's get that off the screen. This is what I'm looking for. If you're not in this pair and you're trying to get in for being able to make a move, a couple things that I'll end up saying is that obviously, if we're looking at what this market could go, I'm just trying to open up my own profile just a little bit more so I can get a little bit more information. Better yet, let's do it right here. Okay. So I knew that this market was going to end up flushing down because of a couple of reasons. One, if you pay attention to where it actually was this morning, we can see that we were basically at a little medium node right inside of this position. And I felt like if it would have broke down at the bottom between right around 12,250, that the market was going to end up falling. Um, with that being said, um, the next area where this market probably might end up bouncing up will be right around the 12,000 area. That's the reason why I end up getting out of it. But for people that are actually looking at being able to get in, I think this move is actually over with. At least for today. I think that it may end up falling down just a little bit more and then after that pop back up to the upside, but it's probably going to stay around that range unless it's just going to go ahead and complete the third support that wasn't completed, which was at 11,946. So this market is truly bearish. If you can look at being able to find anything in the 15-minute, if you can get a U-turn off of it, then that would be the position where I would look at being able to possibly get in. But once again, today's Friday, so it's one of those things where once this move actually is completed, then uh, it may not necessarily give you a great move because it may consolidate a little bit. But um, that was the first move. I'm not going to tell anybody getting off of this. You're trying to chase a falling knife on this one, or you're just trying to get in a little bit too late. Um, you're a New Yorker like me. I can tell by your accent. I've been to New York a few times. I'm not from New York. I'm actually from North Carolina. Um, but it's early mornings here, so it might end up being that. Let's take a look at US 30. US 30 actually ended up making the same move to the downside. Actually, that's a gap. Let's see. Get to a better get to a better perspective. All this movement has already started to happen and started to complete. Really and truthfully, uh, if I was here yesterday, it probably would have been a better situation for it being able to get in. Hey, take it easy, Mike. Hope everything's going well with you. Let's see. All right, so let's just talk about where this market could potentially go. Uh, More than anything, because the market, cause that movement has already done happen. And maybe a little bit left. We can try to see. All right, so here goes your ABCD for the first move. The market ended up completing the extension at 30,945. After they end up doing that, we're basically looking at a U-turn right here, but we do not have a new fractal to be able to work off of. So we got to go to the daily. We got to go to the daily ABCDs to get a better look of it. So there goes your A, there goes your B, there goes your C. The extension got completed right there. We go to the daily. We do that same fib, and we can take a look and see what's happening from here to here. That was your. Let's see, did it complete? No, complete the extension right here. Okay, so market is making this move right now, and once again, obviously, I'm looking at. I will be telling everybody, obviously, to look at being able to sell it, but you want to be able to sell it at a high price, and you want to catch it before it ends up getting past 30,954 because we know that it's going to end up being a huge position where you could see a lot of movement to the downside. Let's see, open up this found profile just a little bit more. We'll probably end up seeing that the market will probably fall down to 31,550 today. At least if you're going based off of that movement. So it may end up having about 200 points worth of movement to the downside still left. But from a daily feel, we can see that the market could go all the way down to 27,550. It goes your A, B, C, and there goes your possible D extension for that move. Now let's go to the 2 hour and see if we can be able to find a movement to be able to get in. Okay, so essentially what I would end up saying is this. If for some reason this market starts to give a U-turn on the 15-minute, let me go to this other chart real quick. If you can get a U-turn on the 15-minute where you can be able to get a somewhat of a pushback around to, let's see, okay, if we can get somewhat of a pushback around to these nodes right over here, then I'll be interested in being able to be interested in being able to sell it again. But I don't think that we're probably going to end up getting that, at least for today. I am interested in being able to add on. I'm kind of mad at myself. My automation system ended up catching a trade on Dow Jones as well, and I actually turned it off. Um, got out of the trade way too early, not paying attention to where the market was at this point. It caught the trade right here. Obviously, it made that big fall down based off of the low volume right there, and then after that, uh, I was able to add on a little bit more a little bit later on, but I missed about 200 points of that movement. So I'm going to wait on this one as well. There's no reason to kind of jump in until this market gives a high price. Once it gives a little bit of a high price, and after that, I'll look at being able to make a move off of that one. The other indexes are showing the same thing. Um, Nas has already done made its moves, already done cashed out. End up making some off of DAX a little bit earlier today. They end up cashing out. Obviously, we can see what's happening with XPX 500. XPX 500 was still up a little bit. Um, I think that this market could potentially fall down to 39.30 before actually being able to have a little bit of a U-turn. Um, what else? What else? What else? What else? What else? That's XPX. Nas has already done completed. Dax has already done completed his move. Yeah, so I'm just gonna remain to be patient with those. Let's take a look at Bitcoin real quick. There may be something into that, and then after that we go over this quick lesson on point of control, and then get out of here. Um, anybody in Bitcoin or Ethereum? Anybody in Bitcoin or Ethereum at this point, or are you just waiting to be able to see this market fall down to 20,000, 25,000? All right, so Bitcoin obviously broke below this natural support at 29,000. From there, remember, when anytime that there's a breakout, then there will end up being a retest. Currently, right now, we end up having a retest as a whole from this one. Um, and we're seeing this consolidation, obviously. So my thing is this: I am interested in being able to short. If you're able to short on this one with whatever your broker allowed you to be able to do, I will look at being able to short once the market ends up breaking out of this position to the downside. There's an expectation that it could fall all the way down to. Let's see, make sure I said this right. There's an expectation on the weekly that it could fall all the way down to think it was 25,000. I'm not paying attention to the daily on this one. I don't think that the market will fall that far. Um, because this market is still in a very tight consolidation, we can actually end up tightening up these levels. I would not look at being able to get into this market until this market actually ends up proving that there's a there's true breakout of this move. That true breakout won't happen until 12,000 until 28,500 to the downside and 32,300 to the upside. So I would I'll wait for a movement from there to be able to make anything off of this one. Probably going to see the same thing on Ethereum, so I'm going to be quick with this one because if I'm looking at that, I wouldn't jump in. Ethereum's a little bit different. It broke out of this triangle that we ended up taking a look at. Um, it has broken the inner trend line, broken the outer trend line, and it's moving all the way to the downside. It could fall all the way down to $720. If it does, then I'm going to fork over my wallet and try to see if I can get as much as I possibly can from that position. But currently, right now, this market is gravitating towards the outer trend line. The outer trend line is suspected to be right around 12,500, I believe, for that downside position. So if I'm trading any one of these, if I'm trading it like I'm trading stocks, bonds, or anything else, you will end up being short in Ethereum all the way down to 1,200 if you can. If it's a long-term investment, I would say wait for the market to be able to fall down to this area, which would be right around 12,500. I'm sorry, 1250, and then after that, start to push back up from there. So that's what I got on that. Since y'all didn't have any pairs or anything else like that that y'all wanted to be able to take a look at, I want to talk about volume profile real quick. Just a quick little lesson, quick little rundown. Hopefully, it'll help out people when it comes down to being able to spot out opportunities and kind of go from there. Kind of playing around with certain indicators. So I'm going to get rid of the indicators that are on the screen aside from volume profile. Let's see, here we go. So let's take a look at Dow Jones just for a second. Let's talk about this in general. We're looking at this from a daily perspective. And with volume profile, what you can be able to find it at, if you go to indicators, once you end up going to indicators, you can go to technicals, and then after that, you can go to volume profile and click on this one. Typically, the one that I use is the volume profile, the visible range volume profile. It allows me to be able to see what's happening on each and every chart because you can change it from daily, weekly to everything else. If you zoom out, you get more information. It becomes a little bit more detailed for us being able to spot that out. Now, there's a couple things that you need to know. With this volume being vertical, you can be able to see where price action is the most and where price action is actually the least when it comes down to physical activity of how many trades that are actually going on, right? So if we look at this, we've seen that all of the trades or the biggest nodes or this biggest area was right around 25,600. That was the area where most of this action ended up happening inside of here. So what happens when you end up finding those large nodes areas, then you will see a little bit of consolidation before the market starts to be able to make a move in a certain direction. Typically, once you end up seeing what that direction actually is, you can be able to determine where the market is potentially going to end up going. So to give you a perfect example, we end up seeing that right here was the second highest little node area, and we end up having a lot of consolidation around that area as well. So it was kind of easy to determine once this market actually ended up breaking below this overall level, which was at basically 34,000, that this market was going to end up falling if the technicals aligned with it. So by being able to take a look at the technicals and being able to understand that, okay, well, if this market does break down to this area, where's going to be the next supply area where people are going to end up getting in? Well, if you notice, and being able to take a look at it, the next real last spot that it can be able to fall will be right here, in which that's where the market is, and that's why we end up having that little support area. Now, you place a little horizontal line on both of these in this area, you'll be able to see that this was a natural pivot area where the market has been before. It's done being resistance here, done being support there, it's done being a little bit of support here. Now it's a little bit of support there, but if it breaks past this zone, then that means that this market could free fall for a very long time before actually being able to push back up. Now, how long is that going to end up being? We don't know. It may be weeks, maybe days, it may be anything else like that. We're looking at this based off of a daily chart. But what I could say is this: if this market keeps on reverting the way that it's doing, and obviously we can see that we have a strong downtrend, we know that this market is not going to slow down anywhere in this area, and it will probably end up falling down to here or falling back down to this red line. This red line is known as the point of control. The point of control is where most action or most transactions have been happening, whether it's buying or selling or everything else like that. So that is a strong, in this case, support level that could be happening in the future that will allow you to be able to know where the market is going to potentially go. Now, why did I say that this was very important? Well, to me, this was very important because of two reasons. I ended up getting into the trade on, well, we can talk about it. We ended up getting into a couple trades on Nas 100 when the market ended up giving us a moving average crossover. Well, based off of that moving average crossover, I ended up saying, okay, well, there was three positions where we're going to end up taking profit at. Support one was at 12,366. Support two was at 12,277. I felt like both of those were going to easily basically be hit. The reason why I felt like they were going to easily be hit was because you take a look at where we were when it came down to the nodes, we could see that basically we was in this little middle area. And if all I had to do with this be able to break below this level at 12,275, which would allow it to be able to find a lot of low volume and where people would not be interested in being able to buy until the market fell down to some of these little high value areas. So the next areas of support is currently where we're at right now. And then after that, the next biggest level is right around 11,900. Well, if it goes past 11,900, then it's going to hit support three in this case for us. So I would say using volume profile will end up giving you a opportunity to be able to know that if I want to trade Euro United States dollar, and let's say that I'm in this actual move, I'm not paying attention to the move based off of, let's see if I can get a better example. Let's see. Let's get some more information. We'll go to the weekly real quick. Okay, well, let's go to the 2 hour and let's try it like that. I'm just trying to find small information real quick, just so I can be able to use it. Okay, perfect example. All right, so if we're looking at this area right here, and we know that if we're taking a look at this, if we're taking a look at the volume profile in this area, and I end up getting into a sale in this area, then I know that consolidation is going to end up coming. But once that market ends up breaking out, then I have this area right inside of here where it's not going to be a lot of fighters when it comes down to buyers. Or if the market was to pop up, you can have a great idea that the market is probably going to end up popping up to that location without much trouble. So by being able to use this information to your advantage, what this will end up doing is it will allow you to be able to know where you can place in your take profit levels for it being able to get out safely, and also allow you to be able to have a little bit more patience in your trades. So um, I know it's short and sweet, but obviously quick rundown, volume profile, this is the visual volume range, profile range. You end up having point of control, which is the red line, which is where most of the action is happening for the transactions. You have your low profile areas where this is where you know that if you can be able to catch a trade before it actually ends up getting into that low profile area, you're going to end up getting massive amounts of gains when it comes down to profit. And then after that, you end up having your next areas which could provide support or resistance for that. That's pretty much it. I hope everybody ends up having a great weekend. I really do appreciate everybody popping in. If you like what I end up doing, please make sure that you end up clicking on that like button. We end up having a lot of trades at the beginning of the week for the people that end up taking those trades on Nas 100, US 30 gold. We end up doing one on pound yen, I believe. You end up taking a look at those trades. We end up going perfect on those trades, and super excited for everybody that end up making money off of that. And we'll see everybody again on Sunday. Obviously, hopefully everybody ends up popping up. Hopefully everybody ends up having a very good weekend. I'm probably gonna end up being like Big K, go out here and get myself a beer or something like that. We'll see. Who knows? But like always, plan your trade, trade your plan. Everyone, y'all end up having a good one. Take it easy.